October 26, 1881. A man stumbles out of a photography studio in Tombstone, Arizona, and hands his revolver to the city marshal. Not because he's surrendering, because it's the law. In 1 hour, 3 men will die in a vacant lot behind that very studio, and almost everything you think you know about how they got there is a lie. This is the Wild West Hollywood doesn't want you to see. Buckle up. Number 10. Frontier towns had stricter gun control than most American cities today. Picture the classic image. A cowboy strolls into a saloon, 6-shooter on his hip, spurs jingling. Forget it. In Tombstone, Dodge City, and Wichita, carrying a firearm inside town limits was illegal. Signs were posted at the edges of town demanding visitors check their weapons with the sheriff or the local hotel the moment they arrived. That's what actually triggered the gunfight near the OK Corral. The Earp brothers were trying to disarm the Clanton gang because the cowboys had broken the ordinance. The shootout wasn't outlaws against outlaws. It was a gun control dispute that turned deadly in 30 seconds. Number 9. The High Noon Showdown never happened. That iconic scene, 2 men squaring off in an empty street, hands hovering over holsters, has almost zero basis in reality. Real frontier violence was ugly, fast, and cowardly. Most killings happened from behind, in the dark, or while the victim wasn't looking. Take Wild Bill Hickok, one of the most famous gunfighters in American history. He didn't die facing a rival in the street. He died on August 2, 1876, sitting at a poker table in Deadwood, holding a hand of aces and eights, when a drifter named Jack McCall walked up behind him and shot him in the back of the head. No duel, no countdown, just murder. Number 8. 1 in 4 cowboys was black. Hollywood spent nearly a century casting white actors as the face of the American cowboy. The numbers tell a different story. After the Civil War, an estimated quarter of all working cowboys on cattle drives were African American, many of them formerly enslaved men who found one of the only jobs open to them. They rode alongside Mexican vaqueros, the original horsemen of the West who taught Americans the very techniques of roping and branding that became cowboy legend, and Native American ranch hands who knew the land better than anyone. The bunkhouse was one of the most racially mixed workplaces in 19th century America. You wouldn't know it from a single John Wayne movie. Number 7. The real drug epidemic wasn't whiskey, it was morphine. Saloons get all the screen time, but the deadliest substance on the frontier came out of a medicine bottle. After the Civil War, doctors had handed out morphine like candy to wounded soldiers, with no understanding of addiction. Hundreds of thousands of veterans came home dependent on it. So did countless civilians, because morphine and opium were sold over the counter in general stores, completely legal, often mixed into tonics given to crying babies. Laudanum, a mixture of opium and alcohol, sat on shelves next to flour and coffee. The frontier wasn't fighting a whiskey problem, it was quietly drowning in opiates, and almost nobody talked about it. Number 6. Here's one that complicates your mental image. The giant 10-gallon cowboy hat you picture? Largely a Hollywood exaggeration from the early 20th century. But the real frontier wasn't a bowler-only world either. Photographs from the era show cowboys wearing a real mix. Bowlers, the same rounded derby worn by bankers back east, slouch hats, sombreros, and early Stetsons. The bowler had genuine fans, since it stayed locked on your head during a hard gallop or a gust across open plains, while a giant floppy brim could blow off in seconds. Even Butch Cassidy and his gang were famously photographed in bowlers. But the Stetson wasn't a later invention. The Boss of the Plains debuted in 1865 and was already part of the frontier wardrobe. What Hollywood did was exaggerate its size and turn it into the singular cowboy icon. Number 5. The lawless West was mostly a marketing scam. Here's the twist nobody expects. The idea that the frontier was an endless bloodbath was largely manufactured in New York City. Cheap dime novels, sold by the thousands to readers who had never been west of the Mississippi, exaggerated every town into a death trap to boost sales. The reality was almost boring by comparison. Dodge City, often called the wickedest city in the West, averaged roughly 1 to 1.5 homicides per year during its peak Cattletown years in the 1870s. That's lower than many small towns today. The myth of constant gunfire was a 19th century content strategy, and it worked so well, it's still selling tickets 150 years later. Number 4. Most cowboys never fired a gun on the job because they couldn't afford one. Real cowboys weren't gunslingers for hire. They were exhausted teenage farmhands, often as young as 15, working 16 to 18-hour days in brutal heat and freezing rain, herding cattle across hundreds of miles for wages that barely covered food and tobacco. A quality revolver could cost a major share of a cowboy's monthly wages. For most cowboys, a firearm was an unaffordable luxury, not a fashion statement. Their real weapons were a lasso, a branding iron, and an enormous amount of patience. Number 3. The U.S. Army built an entire camel corps. This sounds made up. It isn't. In the 1850s, the U.S. War Department imported dozens of camels from the Middle East and North Africa, betting that they could outperform horses and mules in the brutal deserts of Texas, Arizona, and California. The U.S. Camel Corps actually worked. Camels carried heavier loads, needed less water, and handled the terrain better than any horse. Then, the Civil War broke out. The program was abandoned, and the camels were sold off or simply released. For decades afterward, settlers and prospectors across the Southwest reported terrifying encounters with wild camels wandering the desert, completely unexplained, like something out of a fever dream. Number 2. Saloon girls weren't glamorous showgirls. Forget the sequined dresses and perfect makeup from the movies. Frontier life was punishing, clean water was scarce, dental and medical care barely existed, and most women working in saloons were there out of economic desperation in towns where men outnumbered women by 10 to 1 or more. Glamour wasn't required because the demand for any female company was so overwhelming. The job was exhausting, often dangerous, and a far cry from the polished fantasy Hollywood sells. Number 1. The fact that will make you never want to shake a cowboy's hand. Bathing was considered dangerous. A widespread medical belief at the time held that hot water opened the pores of the skin, allowing disease and bad air to seep directly into the body. Combined with scarce clean water across the dry frontier, the result was that most people bathed only a handful of times per year. Entire towns, saloons, churches, and trail drives reeked constantly of sweat, animal hide, gunpowder, and worse. The romanticized frontier wasn't just violent in the wrong ways. It was, quite literally, unbearable to be near. So the next time you watch a classic Western, remember what's really standing just off camera. No quick draws, no spotless heroes, just gun checks at the city limits, bowler hats in the wind, and a smell that could knock you off your horse.